I could not be more grateful for the opportunity to be able to speak with you and to thank you for everything that you have done for your sports, for this new ruling that came out this past week. But broader than that, everything you guys have done for the next generation of women to come. And so very, very excited for this conversation today. I just wanted to start by asking each of you to give a little bit of your background on, of course, your athletic career. But really, I think, too, what got you into golf and some of the sacrifices you had to make to be as successful as each of you are. And so we'll start with you, Zoe.
Yeah, so I started golf when I was 14 years old in high school, and it was kind of love at first sight. My dad introduced me to the game, and I fell in love with it was me. I wasn't relying on teammates. It was like, I either make this putt or I don't kind of thing. So I just fell in love with that aspect of the sport. But yeah, it's just, the sacrifices have been giving up time on the weekends to go play a tournament instead of going out with friends, or, it's going on a Sunday afternoon to go hit balls when I should be studying maybe. So it's just those little sacrifices along the way.
Of course, I think it's important, especially for those who maybe didn't play sports, to understand the time and the commitment and the dedication. And so, Cristiana, I imagine it's a similar. I imagine you started when you were young as well.
Yeah, I started when I was young. Also, I started at age 11. My grandma got me into the sport. She just was an advocate for it and loved going out and spending time with her friends on the weekends and during the week outside playing golf. And once I started getting into it, I just got hooked. I was always playing sports, but golf had a special uniqueness to it. So that's what got me into it. And I loved competing and not having to rely on other people and having that individual aspect as well. And then played all through high school and loved competing and being out there with my friends, just goofing off, having a good time. That I pursued it through college and got more and more competitive as I continued, and just loved the sport. And it was hard to make sacrifices, but at the same time, it was enjoyable because I loved playing golf. I was always itching to get out of school early to go to the golf course and work on my game and just try new things and experience new courses. So while the sacrifices were hard and I had to give up a lot of family and friend functions, it was really enjoyable.
Yeah, it is. It's like a love-hate relationship to a degree on some days. At least that's how I felt in my sport, which it's interesting you guys describe it as, you're on a team to some degree, but you really are playing and competing for yourself, which is very similar to swimming. And it's an aspect I love about my sport as well. So the parallels are certainly there. And Alison, again, I imagine it's a similar background for you as well, in the sense of it took up a large part of your time and a big chunk of your life.
Yeah, for sure. So similar to Cristiana, I got started when I was around 10 or 11. My dad got my older brother and I into the sport, and we grew up playing. My brother took to it like white on rice, and I was a little slower, but I was always getting taken to the course and dropped off. That was like mom's favorite babysitter during the summers. And so I just grew up, and the rest is history. And funny enough, Zoe and I ended up playing as teammates in college. So in the terms of sacrifice, like, that's one of the best times of your life. And you really see as an athlete where you have to realize your priorities and what you are trying to achieve and your goals. And so there's just a lot of those day-to-day experiences and what people would say, like, oh, the college life that you definitely put on a shelf because you're there and you have your sport that you love to compete in and play. And so just a lot of those. And like Cristiana said, it wasn't really, the sacrifices are there on paper, but I think in our minds and in our emotions, it didn't feel that terrible because we were definitely doing what we love to do.
And it's pretty cool you and Zoe were teammates. That to me was the best part of my sport, was those people who happened to be your teammates also grew to be your best friends. My husband was a swimmer. Of course, that's how I met him. And so you're right. There's a lot of sacrifice. There's a lot of grueling aspects about it, but the good certainly outweighs the bad. And I imagine most athletes, especially competing at y'all's level, goodness gracious, making it to to the professional level, I would imagine there are many who agree with you. And so this conversation that golf, the sport of golf, in particular the LPGA, has found itself really at the center of, it's been happening and growing at an exponential rate at the state level, the national level. But you three decided to take a stand. And so I wanted to know what that looked like for you all. What were some of the deciding factors that allowed you to feel secure and confident enough to really take that initial leap of faith?
My biggest, I guess, deciding factor, after school, after I graduated, I knew I wanted to play professional golf, but it wasn't set in stone yet. I actually went to the corporate world for almost 2 years, and my prayer was kind of just like, Lord, like, if I'm supposed to be playing professional golf, like, make a way. And he did. And one of my prayers was, because, this whole gender problem was seeping into the golf world. And one of my prayers was just, if I'm supposed to be out there to take a stand, like, let me have the courage to do that. So when this arose, when the petition came out, I think it was just like, okay, like, yes, I have to take a stand. Like, the Lord is putting this right here in front of my face.
What about you, Alison?
Similar to Zoe in terms of the faith is personally for me a massive driver for everything that I do. But also just my love for just fellow female athletes. Like, I grew up a golfer, but in the big scheme of things, I grew up an athlete. I was friends with all the girls that played other sports, and having a brother that also played sports, it was kind of at first like bewildering, because it was like all of a sudden you had to explain to people that 2 + 2 = 4, just logic. But I was like, I can't compete against my brother. Like, that's not a fair, like, just in general. And so I think when everything started coming out and the opportunities just kind of presented themselves, it was Hannah Arnold's a really close friend of mine that I gained on tour. And when through word of mouth, like, I learned about the movement, it wasn't even like a second thought. I love all the girls that I compete with. And now as a little part-time job in order to help support my dream of tour, I now am an assistant coach at a university, and I have these sweet young women that I am helping just encourage, and this is their future just as much as it is my current situation. Like, if they want to be able to have a platform to compete and go on in their future, like, you've got to protect and give these sweet girls the opportunity. And so that was really my driving factor, is just all the love for people around me and just fighting for their chance to play. Like, the PGA, they already make way more than we do. They've got enough on the guys' side. Fight for the girls.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Cristiana?
Yeah, for me, it was similar to Zoe. Whenever I pursued golf, I knew it was greater than just playing golf. I wanted to have an impact on my community. And when I saw the petition come out, I was really drawn to, like, speaking about it, because I knew it was like growing up playing against the boys, because in Utah, the golf scene was young. So I grew up playing against the boys, and I was always at a disadvantage. And I knew that there was definitely disadvantages, male and female wise. And I wanted to be able to authentically play my sport and compete against those like me, and not have to feel like I was a disadvantage by just stepping on the first tee. By being out there, I wanted to be able to compete to the fullest and pursue what I always dreamed of pursuing. And the opportunity arose that I could make an impact. And if that's how I left the golf community a little bit better, at the end of the day, it's worth it.
These advantages, again, it's kind of crazy we have to mention them or allude to them, because I think, kindergartners seem to understand the difference between boys and girls and men and women. But what about in the sport of golf in particular? Like, what are some of the differences that maybe the average person who doesn't play, what are some of the advantages that a male might possess over a woman?
I know personally it's a lot of distance and speed. Men typically generate higher club head speed and ball speed at the same time, so they can hit the ball further, they can compress the ball a little bit better. So it's just a different style of golf at the end of the day. They can hit the ball different. They can hit different shot shapes and hit a lot of different shots that we're not able to. And that's one of the biggest factors, is that biological difference of speed.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. What about the response you guys have had? Do you feel like it's been positive, negative? Have you felt support amongst the golf community? But I think even broader than that, amongst the general public. I can ask you, Zoe.
Yeah, I've had both good and bad feedback. I kind of knew going into this, like taking a stand, you're going to get the ugly, like keyboard bullies, as I like to call them. But I mean, it's just whatever. Like, you just got to ignore that, because there's a lot more positive feedback coming from friends, family, and just people I don't even know. So just remembering that there's more positive than the good or than the bad. But yeah, those ugly comments can sometimes rent space in your head. But
yeah, it's true. But you're right in saying, when you know what you're fighting for, and when you know really who you're fighting for, I've grown to become, comfortable and secure in the fact that, and I think it's important to mention too, you mentioned your faith. I mean, we're told, we're warned, that we will be persecuted in the same way that he was persecuted, for sharing his values. So I think that to me is certainly reassurance to continue onwards with full steam ahead. But like I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, again, this conversation that we're having is coming off the heels of a pretty exciting and unprecedented rule change from the LPGA and the USGA. They have now announced that they're putting policies in place that prohibit males who have decided to transition after puberty from participating in women's events. I believe this is something that the LPGA has wanted to do for a long time. But there were external factors, whether that be fear, whether that be not wanting to be sued, whatever it is that ultimately prevented them from taking these actions and this measure. But Alison, what is your message, I think, to the LPGA, the USGA, IGF, following this change now?
We're truly just a big thank you. I know is a massive organization. It's hard sometimes to say things, because you think you're governing sports, and then on the next day, the world wants to tell you that you have to play politics instead. And I just appreciate that the LPGA decided, because it's hard, but I would just encourage them and say, look, we're not here to play social justice issues or anything. We're not telling anyone who can put a bow in their hair. We're just letting people know that the bow is not what determines what category you get to compete in. You go put a bow in your hair, whoever you are, but that doesn't determine. We don't all play on the same league just because we're wearing a bow. Like, that isn't what is defining our category in sports. And I think that they've done good. It's a huge relief. And truly, like you were saying, like, the feedback, it's not even, I think 100% for me personally, all of the players, all of the competitors, no one is against this ruling. Everyone is so supportive. I think the only hesitation was coming from the big organizations. And like you were saying, like, their fear of just playing politics or like trying to avoid a lawsuit, but which is sad that they have to face that. But I would just let them know that at the end of the day, I know that their main goal is to protect their players and the satisfaction of their players, and just know that their players are 100% excited and behind them on the decision that they're making.
Absolutely. Cristiana, do you feel like, I'll tell you how I feel personally, I guess. I feel like over the past few weeks, like a very short amount of time, it feels like cancel culture is fading. And again, I think that's something that impacted the LPGA for a long time, but it feels like the air has shifted. Is that something that you see amongst as as described, your teammates or people on teams that you compete against?
I have definitely kind of seen a trend of where people are understanding the reality of the circumstance, and the idea of cancel culture has kind of not been present in my community. They've always been super supportive, but I also feel like when the information is fully laid out, that it's hard to cancel something that the facts all point to the right way. So it's like such a double-edged sword where it's like, how can you argue the facts? And you see that decline in cancel culture when you look at the facts and people are presented with all the information, and that's when positive change happens.
No, I totally agree with you, but I fear that's too logical for some. Last question for you guys, and I want to ask each of you, what's your advice to other golfers or other female athletes who want to speak out, but about this issue in particular, men playing in women's sports, but are hesitant due to fear or backlash or maybe potential repercussions they may face?
Yeah, I think it's just important to be bold. For me, I'm bold in my faith, and I'm not afraid to take a stand. But like you were saying, this cancel culture is maybe taking a back seat, but I think it's important for us to continue standing and not be complacent and not let these things just brush under the rug, because we'll be back in the same position down the road. So I think it's important for the younger generation coming up. And, I want my little girls to be able to play in a girls' league. So, just supporting the girls behind us to stand up, be bold, and be brave.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Cristiana?
I think for me, it's definitely an internal look. Like, you can't judge what you stand up against based off of what the world will think, because the world will always counteract everything you say. So you have to look inward and see, what do you believe in? What are your stances? Where does your faith lie? And speak off of that. If there's something that moves your heart, obviously God's calling you to speak about that. So be bold and obedient in speaking out, and know that positive change is never comfortable, but it's good, because we got to live in that uncomfortability, and that's when things grow, and that's where we get the opportunity to be bold.
Absolutely. You guys are inspiring me. And Alison?
Honestly, just echoing what these two other amazing women have said, I would just say it's what your values are and belief. And for me personally, sometimes it's hard, to think, okay, if I feel strongly about something, how do I get my voice out? And I think God definitely will provide that platform. For me, the Independent Women's Forum, they kind of reached out and said, hey, would you help become an advocacy for our fight that we're trying to press, and have the LPGA make a ruling in favor of the female athletes? And that was when I was like, absolutely. It wasn't a second thought. So just encouraging all the young women, if you feel strongly, it's great. I think keep your beliefs, keep your convictions, and I promise opportunities will present themselves to you. And when the time is ready, you'll be able to have a voice and stand up for what you believe. And they never can get a long-term, eternal discount on standing up for what is right. It's always going to be the best thing in the long run.
That's right. That's right. And I'm so glad actually you mentioned Independent Women's Forum, because I was just about to say they have really done phenomenal work. They were a large part, I believe, in this rule change that you guys will benefit from, as will so many women. I watch all of your episodes. They have a phenomenal series on their IW features. It is called Tea Time, Keep Women's Golf Female. Again, it's a series, so I encourage everyone to go check that out. But it features firsthand stories of current female professional golfers like yourselves, and their love for the game and the advocacy efforts to urge the LPGA, the world's most prestigious women's golf organization, as well as the USGA and the IGF, again, to re-implement these sex-based eligibility policies and maintain the integrity of women's golf. So again, you can check that out at iwfeatures.com. Independent Women's Forum has just been doing phenomenal work across the board, but really worth highlighting the work they've done in women's golf. And so thank you again to you all for being willing to participate in that, because it really made a difference as we've now seen. So again, I thank you guys. I'm so proud of you guys. You really are setting the standard for so many other women to follow. And so we will continue to cheer you on, whether that's, in whatever realm of life. But we're so grateful for you and your bold leadership and your stand in your faith. So thank you, girls.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. The fight to save women's sports and restore common sense is far from over, and I continue the conversation every week. So make sure to catch more content over here and subscribe to OutKick so you don't miss a thing.